What's going on, everybody? This is Darren Wong representing the Kinjas, and in this video we're going to go over the basic things you need to know in order to do footwork. Alright, so there's many things that go into footwork. The first thing we're going to cover is the 4 stances you need to be comfortable in. Alright, so the first stance you really need to get comfortable in is called the neutral stance, or the 0 position as I like to call it sometimes. So, in order to do this, you want to place your feet shoulder width apart, and you're just going to squat down and have your knees track over your toes. Okay, so once you're down here, all you're doing is you're lifting off your heels in order to sit on your heels. Okay, so if I turn to the side here, my feet are about shoulder width apart. I'm squatting down, making sure my knees go in front of my toes. And then once I get to a point, I need to lift off my toe or my heel, so I'm sitting on my heel. So if you notice, I'm actually sitting on my heels and I'm not being flat-footed like this. Okay, so I'm up here and I'm making sure I'm sitting tall. So one more time to the front. All I'm doing is I'm standing up straight, feet shoulder width apart. I squat down, making sure my knees track over my toes, and then at a certain point you need to lift your heels so you can sit on your heels. Okay, so again, don't be flat-footed, make sure you're sitting on your heels. Alright, so while you're in that neutral stance, there's a few things I want to cover. So everyone's built a little bit differently. Your joint length and your limbs are a little bit different, so everyone's going to be a little bit different. But for me and for most of my students, you want to have your knees pointing out to a 45 or a diagonally, okay? Because if you put your knees in here, you're going to feel less in control versus having a wider stance with your knees, okay? So make sure your knees are pointing out in a diagonal. Alright, so the second thing I want to cover is your posture, okay? So for the most part, we're never going to have a crouched in posture, because if you do this, your center of gravity is going to push you in a different direction and you're going to be a little bit more off balance. So you never want to be crouched in like this. You want to have your stance a little bit upright or even straight. This way your center of gravity is perfectly in the center and over your heels. Alright, so the last thing I want to cover for the neutral position is, even though I'm saying sit on your heels, it's not going to be physically possible for some people to do that. Either ankle mobility problems or your calves and your hamstrings are physically getting in the way and you're actually sitting on your calves with your hamstrings. So for me, for instance, if I turn to the side here, I'm not sitting on my heels, but I'm trying my best to align my center over my heels. Okay, so I'm feeling a lot of pressure in my toes, and for me, my calf and my hamstrings are what's touching. But the main thing to remember is you want your center to be over your toes or over your heels. Okay, so you never want to be flat-footed like this, which is going to push your gravity somewhere else. You want to be up, and again, keep that posture good and keep your knees out to a 45. Alright, so the next 2 stances I want to go over is having one leg out straight and one leg tucked in. Okay, so to do this, you have to be able to shift your weight over to one side or another. Okay, so in order to stick out my right leg, for instance, I need to stick my weight over my left foot. So there's a slight little lean, but don't lean too much, but there's a slight lean to take the pressure off of my center here on both my feet, and I'm leaning to my left to put a little bit more pressure on my left foot. So once this happens, my right leg is free to move around. Okay, so all I want you to do is practice sticking it out. You could keep it close for now, or you could stick it farther out and just practice putting it in different directions to find your balance. Okay, so once you've figured out how to do that with one leg, now here comes the key trick. You need to bring that foot back to where it was. So it needs to go exactly back underneath so you can sit on your heel and not back flat-footed, because it's going to throw you off. Okay, so once it's out here, in order to do this, I'm still having a lot of weight over here. So my center of gravity is over this left foot. So what's doing is I'm putting my right foot back underneath before I shift my weight back to my right foot. Okay, so I don't want you to try to shift back all of a sudden. I want you to stick your foot back first and then lean towards it. Okay, so again, I'm over here, I'm bringing my foot back first, my center of gravity stays over here, and then once it's back, then I lean back towards it so it's in the center. Okay, so let's try your left leg being out and sticking your weight on your right foot now. So again, my center is here over both feet. I need to move my center slightly over here so it's only on my right. Once this happens, my left is free. So again, edge it out a little bit, maybe get a little bit more comfortable, and stick your foot in different weird positions. Okay, so to bring it back, I need to stick it underneath in the center, not flat-footed, but on my toe. So in order to do this, I bring my foot back first, then I lean towards it. So again, I'm not going towards my foot all of a sudden. I'm letting my foot come back first, and then I lean towards it in the center. All right, so one thing I will say about sticking one leg out is for the most part, and for most of my students, they find that having their knee out in a diagonal or a 45-degree angle is their best balance point. So again, having this knee out pointing a direction is where people find their best balance. But since everyone's a little bit different and we're all built a little bit differently, for you, it might be your knees a little bit forward, you find more balance, or even a little bit more out, you find more balance. So find what works best for you and keep practicing that. All right, so before we move on to the last stance that you need to be comfortable being in, we need to cover a few things about what to do with your arms and what your hands are doing specifically. All right, so the first thing I want to cover is what our hands are doing while it's touching the floor. Now, what we're shooting for while we're training our footwork is something called an eagle grip. So instead of being flat-handed on the ground, we want to be raised up on the top part of our hand, our fingers, and our thumb. So you can think of this similar to a boxer who wants to be on their toes versus flat-footed. An eagle grip is going to allow us to be a little bit faster while we do our footwork. All right, so in order to learn the eagle grip, all I want you to do is go on your knees and put your hands on the floor. From this position, all I want you to do is focus on pressing the floor away with your fingers until you raise up on the top of your hand. So we're aiming for this part of our hand, and you're gonna feel a crazy stretch with your fingers. So it's almost like your fingers getting spread back, okay? So again, your hands are flat. I stretch with my fingers until I'm on the top of my hand. Okay, from here, you want to place your thumb whatever's comfortable for you. So again, everyone's a little different, but I want you to find that place where your thumb feels secure. From here, all I want you to do, just to feel safe, is take one step out with one of your legs. So step out in a diagonal so you're in a little wider base, okay? Once you feel comfortable with that, you feel a little bit more pressure, I want you to take one more step with that other foot and step out, okay? So again, we're on our knees, our hands go flat. Now we're stretching with our fingers, so we're on the top of our hands. We place our thumb somewhere that's comfortable, and once you feel comfortable there, take one step out, and then one step out again. All right, so for the most part, you can feel a lot of pressure on the middle part of your hand and your thumb, okay? So your middle part and your thumb are gonna feel a lot of the pressure, but you will feel pressure throughout your hand. But for the most part, it's on your middle and your thumb. All right, so like I mentioned before, as we're training our footwork, the eagle grip is what we're shooting to use the entire session. But I know it's a crazy weird position to be in, and your hands and your wrists might not be used to the pressure when you first start. So by all means, you can go flat-handed, but really shoot to use that eagle grip as much as you can. All right, so now that you understand what the eagle grip is, let's go over that fourth position that you need to know in order to train your footwork. All right, so to get into this fourth position, we're gonna start how we learn the eagle grip, okay? So I want you to be on your knees, put your hands flat on the floor, lift up into that eagle grip, and this time, when you step out with one leg, I want you to think of bending it slightly and pointing your knee towards the center. Okay, so I'm up in this eagle grip. One of my legs goes out, and I'm not straightening it. It has a slight bend, and my knees are pointing in. Okay, from here, I want you to do the same with the other foot, so don't straighten it, but have a slight bend and have your knees pointing in. So if I turn to the side, I'm on all fours, flat-handed. I go to that eagle grip. I'll take a step out. I won't straighten it. I'll bend it, and I'll take a step out with my other foot, and I'll have a slight bend in it. All right, so a key thing to keep in mind while you're in this position is the position of your hips. So for the most part, we want our hips to be pretty level to the ground versus having it up or too low. So what I mean by that is once we get into this position, we want our hips to be pretty in line with our body, okay? So we never want our butt up in the air, and we don't have our hips sagging too low to the ground, okay? So for the most part, you want to be pretty level to the ground. All right, so another thing I want you to focus on while you're in this position is making sure that there's an equal distribution of weight between your legs and your arms, okay? So while you're in this position, you want to make sure you feel weight on your arms and on your legs, okay? So if you push too far forward, you're gonna feel a lot of weight on your arms, and if you push too far back, you're gonna be focusing more on your legs. So find that middle ground for yourself and really feel that distribution between your legs and your arms. All right, so now that you feel comfortable in that position, now I want you to lift up one arm at a time. This will teach your body how it's gonna feel once one arm is off the ground and you have to put a lot more weight on the other arm, okay? So get it in that all four position, and then once again, make sure your weight is distributed between your legs and your arms. And all I want you to do is lift up one arm and then put it down. So again, to shift my body weight, all I'm doing is I'm focusing on this right arm and I'm lifting it. I'm slightly leaning to my right. Okay, so I'm not centered. I'm slightly leaning to my right, so I feel a lot more weight over here. Then I put it back down, and that's when I go center. So again, if I want to go to my left arm, I focus on this left arm. I slightly lean this way, so I have some support over here. And then when I go center, that's when I put this arm down. All right, so once you feel comfortable with those four positions, there's one more thing you need to know, and that's where to put your arms while you're doing your footwork. All right, so a common misconception about footwork is that it takes a lot of upper body strength to do. But if you keep your arms close to yourself, you'll be in more control and you won't need to use as much strength. So to illustrate this, let's take our right arm and let's reach out really far to our right. Okay, so from here, I want you to try to push back into that neutral position or that zero position. Okay, so again, sitting on your heels. So go ahead and try to push back, and you'll notice that's pretty hard. But now I want you to reach relatively close to your right foot or somewhere close to your right. Okay, so reach here, and now I want you to push back into that neutral position. And of course, it's going to take a little less strength. So again, to illustrate this, let's go to your left. So let's reach out really far to your left, and then I want you to try to push back into that center position. And you'll notice it takes a lot of arm strength to do that. But once you reach closer to yourself and you try to push back, so push back, it doesn't take as much arm strength. So with that said, for the most part, we want to keep our arms relatively close to our body whenever we're doing footwork. That way we don't have to exert as much energy or use a lot of strength. So with all that in mind, we do have to get comfortable having some weight on our arms at a given moment while we're doing footwork. So all I want you to do here is go into this neutral position, and I want you to go ahead and reach back behind you. Now, I don't want you to depend completely on your legs. I want you to feel a little bit of pressure on this back arm, okay? So this is my left arm here. So from here, I just want you to push back to center. So again, let's reach back with your right arm, somewhere close, and then push back. So all I want you to do is just get comfortable here, leaning back into your arm so you feel some pressure. So let's try that from the side. So again, I'm in my neutral position. I do want you to lean back so you feel pressure on your arm. So it takes a little bit off your legs, and then simply push back. Lean back with your other arm, and push back, and then go ahead and get back and forth with this so you get comfortable putting weight on your arms. So for some of my students, they have problems reaching the ground and really feeling pressure on that arm. So to fix this, all I tell them to do is focus on their knees pointing down or have their hips going up. So if I turn to the side here, for whatever reason they can't reach the ground, it could be ankle mobility problems or their limbs are just built differently. I have them reach back, and then if they can't touch it, I have them put their knees and focus on pointing them down. That lowers them to the ground a little bit more. And that way, they could touch the ground and they start feeling pressure here. And then to reverse it, they just use your arm to push back and focus on your knees coming up. Another cue I give them is to focus on their hips pointing up, which will inevitably push your knees down and push your hips up so you can reach more. And again, to come back, think about pushing your hips down. All right, so one more example of this to get comfortable utilizing your arms and feeling the weight on your arms is where you utilize that one leg out position, okay? So let's stick our right leg out and have our left leg in. Okay, so from here, I want you to go ahead and use your arms and start to feel weight and take pressure off of this left leg. So go ahead and put that left hand down and feel the weight relieve from here and focus on putting it a little bit over here. Now from here, all I want you to do is push over to your right arm, again, keeping it kind of close to you so you don't have to use strength to push back, and feel the weight go from your leg to your right arm. Okay, so very slowly, my weight is going from here and it's going to my foot, and then it's going to my other arm. Okay, so from here, it's going left arm, foot, right arm. And go ahead and push back and forth just so you feel the different pressure on each limb. Let's do that one more time. Let's try our right leg being in and our left leg out. Okay, so go ahead and put that left leg out. Your right leg is in. And again, I'm putting pressure on my right arm to relieve my right leg here. And I'm feeling a little bit more pressure here and a little bit slight pressure on my foot. And then when I push over, I'm focusing on pushing it to my foot and then over to this arm. Again, keeping this arm relatively close so I don't need energy to push back over here. So now I have a little bit more weight here, slight weight here. So I push back, more weight here, and then more weight here. And then go ahead and go push back and forth and just get comfortable shifting your weight. All right, so that's it for this one. Now, it's super important that you understand all the concepts that we just covered before you start training your footwork. The reason is, it simply just sets the foundation for all footwork steps that you will learn in the future. And it just makes them way easier to learn because you understand the concepts that are behind it. So if you liked the video, make sure you like, share it, and subscribe to my channel, and leave a comment below. I'll see you in the next one. Comfortable center, the more center you are in your so close. Oh, my legs hurt. Ooh, going over footwork is crazy. Here we go. So don't feel like you're doing something. Oh, I fell. I fell. Okay. Oh, like, and then it's inevitably raised up on the whatever this is. What is this? I don't know what this is. Knuckles. The first knuckles? I don't know. Top of your hand. Top of your hand.